AI future is here. And this is why these companies will grow forever, because Google, Meta, all Microsoft, they're all connected to the AI boom. Yet the reality is the actual products themselves, LLMs, don't really do enough. They do something.
Yeah.
You can use them. They are kind of like the next generation of internal automation. They're like robotic process automation, like UiPath. It's stuff that kind of exists, but a bit better. There are some cool things.
Yeah, I mean, I've used on the phrase on the show before. I forget where I got it, but the idea that it's a word calculator. There is a way that if you put in a certain combination of words, you might get some output that you find useful to some degree. But it's not like a lot of the stuff's things you could have found on Google already. A lot of it is something that if you put in a little bit of time, you could figure it out. You could do it yourself.
And it always feels hollow because it is.
Yeah.
It's calculated.
Yeah.
Like it feels calculated, surprisingly enough. But the problem is as well, it isn't that it's useless. It's that it might only be worth 3 or 4% profit growth.
Yeah.
Like it may be the future, but it might not be the next big thing. But they're selling it as if it is. And what the big problem is going back to your old iPhone example. You could tell a friend exactly why that thing was cool. They'd say it was too expensive.
Yeah.
It was like $600. It was a lot of money, but they saw it and then, wow, this looks great. Like, oh, you can listen to your music and text people. You didn't have to onerously explain why people should care. With ChatGPT, genuinely gone to my head, I'm not sure how I'd describe what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd describe the process, but what is ChatGPT? It can write stuff, kind of, but it gets it wrong. It can generate pictures of stuff. So, right? And
you can talk to it sort of, and it'll give you a rather boilerplate response.
Yeah.
It can, if you want it to, whenever I'm playing with it, which I do sometimes, I'm always like, okay, give me a recipe for a pizza with poop on it. And then it does that. And then I say, now write that as a limerick. And then it writes a little poem. I'm like, that was mildly amusing. Like I've never seen a computer program that can do that before. There's stuff like I've talked, I think before on the show about there's a game called AI Dungeon that like works like a text adventure, like an old text adventure, but it can do anything, right? You're like, I want to turn into a wizard and fly away. And it'll just generate some text that describes you doing that. So it's sort of like a one-person tabletop role-playing thing where like an automated DM who can, spit out a fantasy for you. That's like,
and absolutely nothing
some people
wrong
might
with
pay
it.
for that, sure. But it's not like Steve Jobs standing on stage going, it's a phone, it's an iPod, and it's a revolutionary internet device. You can connect to the internet from anywhere that you are. You hear that pitch and you're like, my God, I mean, that'll change my life.
Exactly. Like, you look at what GPT does as well, and you look at Claude and Anthropic's model, for example. You look at Llama, Meta's one, and you go, wow, okay, you can do stuff. Now what? What now? Like, seriously, what is the next step of this? GPT 4.0 just came out, the thing that got them embroiled in the whole scandal with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
So that was an iterative update. But that's the best they've had. It's the last time they did anything new. And it's so bizarre because I feel like quite lonely in saying this, but what if this is all they've got?
Yeah.
What if this is it? Because once everyone works that out and is willing to say it, the tech industry has backed this so vociferously. They've really gone to town on this one.
Yeah. To the extent that they feel forced to. I mean, Apple looks like they're doing all this AI stuff like with a gun pointed at their head. They're like, we've got AI emojis. It's gonna, right? We've got Apple Intelligence. And like they give this whole presentation and I was like, these are the features that I give a shit about the least that I've ever seen in an Apple keynote.
What I really liked about that though was the ChatGPT integration into the new iOS. They're like, yeah, we've got ChatGPT. It will sometimes answer some things and you will have to give it permission every time. 100% just something they did for the markets. That's just a bit, yeah, we've got ChatGPT in this bullshit, whatever, who cares? But when you look at what they're doing with their own models, it's kind of interesting. Oh, you can do distinct actions across apps. That's cool. Don't know if it's the next big thing, but it's a cool new way for the phone.
But when you look at that sort of feature, well, that just looks like that's just a regular old feature they're calling AI now, that it's a little bit of automation.
It is actually AI.
Okay,
like it is actually their own models, but it's their own models run on device. It's stuff that people have been doing, so edge computing, so on device AI for years. Like it's been around. A very simple example, the one I give is like you can Raspberry Pi, so these tiny computers, which by the way, significantly bigger innovation than anything generative AI has done.
Mhm.
People invented Raspberry Pi should be like, how about
Yeah, it's like a $40 powerful computer that you can put anywhere.
Powerful enough, and you can
tiny.
attach. You can have that, and it can have edge AI running to for a machine that can identify a strawberry that's rotten on a farm. Genuinely useful industrial stuff.
Yeah.
What Apple's doing is just what you can do when you have complete control over your operating system and no one else is really allowed to touch it. The SDK that can connect the model to different parts of different apps could be really cool. But also, surprisingly demure about it. Like, it was a big thing at Worldwide Developers Conference, but there's no big ads. There's no big, they've done a media push, but it's not huge.
Right.
There. And also, they don't appear to be really, I'm sure that they have giant GPU, so graphics processing units, which are used to train these models. Sure, they have them, but they've not been very flashy about saying, we've just built hundreds of acres worth of server space for the future.
It seems like they're hedging their bets, like they're dipping their toe in because they feel like they have to, but not going all in.
Yeah, and Apple, to be clear, no company's particularly ethical, but Apple seems to also realize, we piss off all our users and make our products suck ass, maybe they'll stop using iPhones.
Yeah.
That's bad for business.
They don't want to do what Google just did.
The Google AI search. That one's so good though. That one really felt like begin to disassociate when I saw it. Because I've been watching this for a while because it was on Google Labs.
Yeah.
There's an SEO expert called Lily Ray who's been watching it very close. And she's been posting for a while just saying, this is bad. They should not launch this. These results are bonkers. And then they didn't, surprisingly.
And Bing did the same thing a year ago. Like, it released AI results in Bing, and people made fun of it because it did exactly the same thing that Google's did.
Except they were very cautious with it. And this is a side feature. Please don't trust this. Google, you got to give them credit for just being like, yep, here you go. And then when people found the terrible results, they said, actually, that's good.
Yeah.
It's actually good that you found that. And also, those are uncommon queries anyway. So, because no one makes pizza. And it's...
But they've also said forever that, like, what is it, 15% of all Google searches are, like, searches that they have never seen before, are completely unique. Like, their bread and butter is unusual Google searches. That's the point of Google, to help you find things that are unusual. Well, the interesting thing about ChatGPT 4o to me, okay, so the AI boosters, or a lot of the people I know who are still frightened of AI, here in Hollywood, the thing that a lot of people were saying last year during the strike is, this is just the beginning. It's going to get radically better. They've got stuff cooking up that we don't even know about yet. It's going to be so huge. In 5 years, people were literally saying to me last year, in 5 years, Hollywood won't exist as an industry, because AI will be so radically great. And, I would have to say, have a little bit of skepticism, because this is what Sam Altman is telling people. He's saying, my product is going to destroy the world, so you should do what I want.
Yes.
But where is the evidence that it's going to get radically better, rather than that, hey, they've invented this thing called a large language model that can do this one thing, but it might not have actually this, like, incredible growth curve ahead of it. And I think some evidence for that, for me, was ChatGPT 4o was not a radical improvement in the quality of the large language model or its results. It was a better productization of ChatGPT, where it's like, okay, now ChatGPT is in a little app, and it has the front-facing camera.
It responds faster.
It responds a little faster. It has a voice now. It didn't have a voice before, but it's still saying the same shit, right?
Yes.
Like, it still has the same cognizance. It's not smarter. It just can sort of look around a little bit better. We put the same dumb brain into a slightly more advanced robot dog. But
it is still a dog.
Yeah. And so what do you think the prospects are for the radical improvement of AI? Because I've started to read these things. Oh, they're running out of training data, that sort of thing.
So the big problem they have is that training data.
Yeah.
So there was an estimate in the Wall Street Journal, researcher, I forget his name. It was the GPT-5, so the next model of ChatGPT, or GPT, their large language model, will take 5 times the available training data, or the 5 times the amount of training data that it took to train GPT for. So big problem there is they don't have much more. They are running out, and they may have run out.
Well, if ChatGPT 6 takes another 5 times, that's an exponential problem.
And on top of that, they don't seem to be too good at making new models. They were meant to spin up one and more efficient model for Microsoft called Arrakis.
God damn
God
it.
damn it. Like, like when I read that, I'm like, oh, fucking, just, God damn it. And then it didn't work out because it wasn't efficient enough, which is not a good sign. But also, these things are not getting, they're getting better, but they're not getting better. It's not like the jump from, I don't know, GPT-2 to GPT-3. On top of that, the ways they're getting better do not suggest they're going to get better in the ways that Sam Altman has been talking about. A super smart friend that knows everything about you suggests features that are not part of a large language model.
Right.
Like memory is something they've kind of worked on. There are other people who've worked on memory within these things, but the fundamental thing of knowing requires knowledge, which requires actual intellect, which GPT cannot have. It's mathematics. It's extremely complex.
Yeah.
But also, all of these people talking about, oh, it's going to be so much better in the next year. History doesn't look great for you either, but also, how? How? Just how?
Yeah.
Why do I have to constantly explain to you why your product is good? Why do I have to make your argument for you? Why don't you have one?
Yeah.
Other than it will be good. And that's the thing. Everyone wants it to be because it would be cool. And also, if there's no big tech thing coming out, what's the future look like for tech?
Yeah.
It's a scary...
I just have to continue living in the present forever?
Yeah,
like,
I need the computer to distract me. But also, it's a situation where so much money has gone into it.
Yeah.
So many billions of dollars, so much money into data centers, so much money into marketing efforts, so much venture capital. Everyone is so deep down the hole that kind of who's going to wake up first rather than it getting to some point. Sora, the video generating model from ChatGPT.
I can't wait to talk about this.
It's so good. It's so bad. Everything it makes has so in hallucinations in the written word, it will say something authoritatively that isn't true. In Sora, it just makes like a monkey with 7 arms and it looks terrible.
Yeah.
And every time you ask it to do anything, it takes, I think if it's 20 seconds long, it takes 10 minutes or 20 minutes to generate.
Yeah.
And the prompts, no matter how precise, it usually makes up some extra stuff.
Yeah.
And the amount of training data they'll need to make Sora work is insane.
Yeah.
On top of all of this, also horribly unprofitable, and it doesn't do anything. It does not do anything. It doesn't make anyone money. Like this is the big thing. People talking about, oh, well, it's going to get exponentially better. First of all, it hasn't been. But on top of that, it's still not profitable. It's still horribly unprofitable. And it requires all this energy and it requires all this training data. There's so much more evidence that this is kind of tapping out in the generative AI space.
Yeah. I mean, when Sora came out, and let's be clear, that product is not available to the public.
No.
They released some tech demo videos. But again, working in Hollywood, a lot of people I know said, well, this is the end.
Understandably.
Like they're going to, this is going to, the future of movie making, they won't need to film anything. They'll just like have Sora output shots. And, I'd have to walk through with people. I was like, okay, first of all, this is not available to the public. They've released like 6 videos that they say were made by this.
Right.
So how many bad videos did they need to make before they got these 6 that they showed us, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take to make each one of these? Like what was, we are talking about, 30 frames per second of 4K footage, right? And
not even 4K, by the way.
Oh, really?
So I spoke to someone a guy from a company called Shy Kids that made a video with Sora. They had to get it at 480p because it took too long if you went higher resolution.
Yeah, because I mean, rendering times are very serious just with traditional visual effects. And so you're talking about a large language model generating something, or it's not a large language model, but a similar technology, right? A generative AI.
In Sora's large language model.
Okay, great. But so there's that piece of it. Then so the amount of processing that it has to do compared to making, a DALL-E image is like exponential, right? Then you don't have the ability to make a tiny tweak, right? That you do in, when you're actually working with an actor, you can say, walk a little bit faster, walk a little bit slower. I know because if you ask DALL-E, generate the same thing, but make it a little bit brighter. It gives you a whole new image, right? And so it would be like that as well. Plus, if they made a great image of a lady walking down a Hong Kong street, right, with a shiny floor, right, with there was rain on the street.
And the legs at one point go like that.
Yeah, yeah. But it looked pretty okay,
It looked
right?
plausible, yes.
But the only reason that it knew what it looked like for a lady to walk down a Hong Kong street was because it had ingested huge amounts of footage of people walking down Hong Kong streets. Like it needed the footage to begin with to generate the thing, so it can't generate new things. And, you won't be able to solve the problem that the executive will have at the film company where they're like, oh, I don't like the take. Can we get another one? No, actually, we can't, because if we do that, it'll be a completely different person in a completely different situation. So that problem is unsolved. You start to ask, well, isn't it and it's going to be massively expensive to compute all of this over and over and over again, generate all of this. So at what point is it cheaper just to send a fucking dude with a camera to Hong Kong and get a lady on a rainy day? Like, but it's a great tech demo, but people are getting rolled by seeing the tech demo and imagining what it could do rather than looking at the reality of the technology at all.
And that is the entire AI hype bubble writ large. It is letting journalists, let's be honest, filling in the gaps for these companies.
Yeah.
Sora, great example. So, okay, theoretically, if the computer could spit out an image of a woman walking down the street at any time, that would be great. But like you said, it is not just a question. You can't even ask, if you say woman with black hair, Asian woman with black hair, different Asian every time, probably pink hair at some point.
Right.
Because of the training data is trained on.
Well, and because the technology is fundamentally unpredictable. Like that's how it works. You can't say I want exactly this, but slightly different. Because it is generating
probabilistic.
It's probabilistic, yeah.
And it's funny because look at ChatGPT. When people write about the future of OpenAI, they're not talking about this shit. They're talking about what Sam Altman has been beating off on TV for a year. They're talking about Sam Altman saying, oh yeah, well, he said to New York Magazine in 2016, I think it was New York Magazine, New Yorker, that it would be not unreasonable to think within 10 years, or 20 years, I think it was, that he would have a computer version of his brain. And he's very good at making these things where the gap between the predictions is long enough and no one's really going to check.
Yeah.
I will check, Sam. I've got it in my flipping calendar. I do. But you look at this, and he goes out there and he'll vaguely say that ChatGPT is the future. AI is the future. We need to be scared of AI. Yeah. He'll say AI is not a creature. But what he wants you to think is, did someone think it's a creature?
Mm-hmm.
Because he wants this mystique. Because if he actually had to talk about the thing he's selling today, he'd go, well, it's a calculator of sorts. Well, it doesn't always work, but when it does, it's sort of good. And I can understand in business process automation. I mentioned UiPath. They're a robotic process automation company. They're worth billions because of them doing these very minute, very simple customer service things. But because you can scale that, that's useful. GPT and large language models fit into this kind of thing extremely well. These companies are growing because of that. That will help them. That ain't sexy and that ain't big. That's not trillions. Yeah. That's hundreds of billions at best, and that's going to take a minute. And also, you can't sell that to the markets that natively. It's just not that nice. And also, RPA is profitable. GPT, large language models, absolutely not. But because Altman goes in there and says, here's this thing that kind of looks like the future. Look, this thing can do kind of realistic videos. People say they're scared. I'm scared of what this could be. And they fill in that white space and they say, well, because this thing can approximate how a human writes, this thing will write in place of humans within 5 years. Oh, because this video kind of looks like something you could film of real people. Naturally, in 5 years, this will be how entertainment is generated. And the problem is, that's the old. That's the old world when things used to. There is no Moore's law for this crap. This is not a situation where we're simply going to get more power and this will fix itself. Even if we threw so much more power at this problem, it would still hallucinate because that's maths, baby.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And it still wouldn't be able to give you that slight variation on the previous clip because it would still be probabilistic. That's the nature of the technology. It's not something that they can just like cram more transistors onto a smaller chip like they do with Moore's law.
And the problem is, as well, notice that Sam Altman has been crying about how he needs more power. He needs an energy breakthrough. He needs more server space. He's begging Microsoft for an $100 billion supercomputer, which, by the way, is contingent on a meaningful improvement to GPT. So he's screwed. But he's asking for these things because there is no way this goes much further.
Yeah.
Based on what we have today. And the only company that's really having a great time with this is NVIDIA, because Jensen Huang can just like, it's chips faster. You little pigs will buy this every day. And you watch any of his keynotes, NVIDIA CEO, and it is very much him just completely waffling. There's a bit in the latest keynote where he says, you'll have a super AI, which talks to smaller AI, which then speak to other AI. And people in the audience are like, woo, yeah, baby. Just fucking idiots. Like a lot of.
But he doesn't really care because he's the guy selling guns to the war.
Yes,
he's just selling chips, and so it doesn't need to work for him. He's going to make a lot of money right now.
Oh, it works. What he's selling works. The chip does the thing.
Yeah,
like he's fine. He is also just he has jumped on trends before. Nvidia has had a very weird history.
Yeah,
Games Nexus has some great videos on Nvidia. He's been waffling this bullshit before. He did it with crypto. That guy's just a classic business. Like he's almost kind of folksy in how much of a classic tech, but he's just like, yeah, faster, bigger. Who gives a shit? When you look at everyone else with these LLMs, just this air of desperation.
Yeah.
Facebook, as we mentioned, great company. They've put AI in everything now. There's AI in Facebook. There's AI in Instagram. You can ask Meta AI anything.
Yeah,
and it will give you
around with it at 1 a.m. last night when I couldn't sleep. Yeah, sure.
And it's now responding on comments. They responded on a parenting group.
Whoa.
Because you can activate it so it responds to groups. It responded on a parenting group a couple months back saying that it had a gifted child and then recommended a school. I was just, when I saw that, I'm like, this is so good. I hope there's more of this. I genuinely hope that I want to see I want to see this thing cook everywhere. But that's such a great, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what Zuckerberg wants it to do. If you need people to interact with a product, you need them to engage. What better way than poking viciously with it? Hey, look, you've got people responding to you. You have someone to talk to. I don't think it'll work, but I can imagine someone being like, yeah, it's a really good idea. But on top of that, again, how is that profitable? Every single one of these transactions, every time someone uses this thing, it's losing them money.
Yeah, because it is very high. It takes a lot of compute to make this stuff.
So expensive. And also, there's no profit on the horizon. Where's the money coming from? Like, taking away all the cynicism, just, where's the money, honey? Like, where is it?
Yeah. Are they running ads in the middle of the chat GPT responses? What are they doing?
Even then, do you think anyone's, like, they're now saying they are 404 Media reported that they are trialing doing injected ads into people's videos on Instagram. They are ripping out the wiring from the wall. They are desperate. Yeah. And I think the AI stuff is just them going, ego, we're doing the thing now.
Yeah.
Who cares? Zuckerberg doesn't care at all. He can't be fired, like I mentioned. He's just doing it. What's really interesting is Microsoft. They're the ones where I'm like, you guys are really in the hole. Yeah. I think they are actually really in trouble. So, of course, heavy investor in OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
However, OpenAI, a non-profit. Sure, buddy. Yeah, for real. But heavily invested in OpenAI. Heavily saying it's the future. But also tied to Sam Altman, who is a nakedly corrupt and very strange figure. But on top of that, promising the world with AI, but probably more aware than anyone of how limited it is, because they have all the money into ChatGPT. They've got their own models. They're paying Oracle billions to build more data centers. They build data centers too. I don't know why. Oracle is big on build outs, I guess. And it's very weird because they must know. They must know this shit sucks. And they might, like the Copilot thing where they had they could not even explain why you should use it. They are probably looking at this and just counting down the days. They're just like, there's a company called Inflection, which made a empathetic large language model called Poe, I think it was. That Microsoft absorbed them in the most bizarre way. They acquired them, but also gave contracts to the they took all of the people from the company who made the large language model, then made a deal with the remaining Inflection company people to keep running it. And now I think the Department of Justice is looking into it because it's extremely weird. It was also worth $1 billion.
Jesus.
What are they doing? Like, these are not the actions of someone doing well. These are like, this is like crackhead style stuff. Like
it almost seems like a Ponzi scheme where it's I always need to find the new injection of money. And I mean, look, the sky high valuations of tech companies, all the money that flooded into the industry. My understanding is it came in for two reasons. A, the costs were extremely low.
Yeah.
You know, like for running an internet company, way cheaper than building a new car company, right? You don't need factories. You just need data centers. It's like the costs are low. And B, there was a potential to create entirely new businesses, entirely new business models. You know, the blue ocean approach to business, right? You can create this like new world and be the first person to dominate it. And that is what they need to continue to try to create those new blue oceans, those new vast universes, untapped wildernesses to go explore, and there might not actually be any left. And so I guess my question is, what does this mean about the market? Like, if the market is driving this, right? We've been talking about all the bad decisions that the tech companies are making, that are forcing them to turn a large language model from, hey, a kind of cool niche product that maybe would be kind of neat, like into the wave of the future. Everything's going to be different, where it's going to destroy the entire economy and we're going to rebuild it around large language models. They have to make that argument because the market is demanding it of them.
Yes.
So what the fuck happened to the market where the market is demanding this, right? Because we are describing the dysfunctions of tech as being a symptom of the market. So what the fuck is up with the market?
So the market's addicted to growth, and the raw economy is much larger than tech. I just know my tech much better than I know wider economics.
Yeah, it's more fun to talk about too.
Yeah. I also believe that trying not to was Dunning-Kruger the whole. I'm not gonna. I'm not
right.
But nevertheless, there is a problem across the whole stock market where it's addicted to growth. When everything is always growing at all times, why would you not invest in the thing going up? Because it's always gone up. You see it in games. Companies getting way overfunded, hiring, firing. Journalism, a great example.
Yeah.
People taking over journalism. Oh, well, we'll just shove more money in it and we'll get so much more money out. Never works, but man, do they feel good about it.
Yeah.
And what it is that the markets are just disconnected from value. There has been I don't really know when it started, but there has been an economic shift away from sustainability. And on my case, it's a good fire is one that's sustainable, that keeps you warm. What they are doing now is throwing bits of furniture into the fire. They are throwing gasoline on it, getting burned, and like, it must make more warm. And the problem is, companies that are sustainable, that are reliably growing, or perhaps they're plateauing, but they are still making more money than they spend. They're happy employees, happy customers. Those aren't sexy to the markets. The markets must have growth. I'm not sure what started it. I really am not.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere. It's just more pronounced in tech because of what you mentioned, the blue ocean approach. When you crave growth at all times, this tech is a sexy little beast. Oh my, everything's growing all the time. You've got these little companies that grew with 3 people that are worth, during the metaverse time, it was one that got funded, I think, like $100 million. They didn't have a product. They just formed the company. I have no idea how they did it.
Well, and every investor wants, you got in early. You know, you were the first person in. There was this great big thing. Don't you want to hop on board? I mean, I hear this sometimes. People were telling me 10 years ago, you should make something for VR. VR headsets are the next big thing. And I was like, I actually don't think that they are, but that's what I was told. And I find it very interesting that we're having this debate constantly about, like, is the economy good or bad, right? That's like the core issue for Biden right now.
Right.
Like, people feel that it's bad, but the numbers are actually good. Unemployment is down, interest rates, blah, blah, blah. There's this whole thing. And one of the things you can point to is the stock market is doing very well. It's done extremely well since 2020. And then before 2020, it was doing extremely well since the housing crash. It's been like this sustained upward growth. And I have a retirement fund, like, hey, that's great for me. Look at the nice big number, right? But it puts this worry in the back of my mind. Well, it seems like the one thing that the people who run the economy know how to do, or that the system is optimized to do, is to produce good stock market returns. That no matter what's happening, no matter what the fundamentals are, we can get the stock price to go up.
Yes.
But that might be by these rot economy methods, that it is by squeezing more juice out of the thing while destroying it, like short term, shoring everything up, sticking 2x4s underneath all the sagging ceilings.
Yes.
And that is what's really going on, which would imply that there is perhaps a reckoning coming.
I'm scared of that.
Yeah.
I am definitely scared of one happening in tech, because once the overall thing you're talking about, I believe, like, why people feel bad when economy good, it's because things are more expensive. The cost of living is high everywhere. Rents have gone up. They rarely go down.
Yeah. Wages are stagnant.
It is harder to get a mortgage than it's ever been.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. Mortgage rates are high too. The basic costs of living one's life are harder and higher and nastier in a very tangible way. Yeah, there are articles saying economy is good. Yeah, we should all celebrate. With what fucking money?
Yeah.
What am I celebrating? I'm not complaining myself.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I really am.
Yeah.
But also, healthcare costs in this country as well. I grew up, my father worked for the NHS. Like, the fact we don't have Medicare for all in this country is completely fucking insane.
Insane.
But also, that's why people feel bad. It's not about a
Yeah.
CNN article about the economy being good. It's their life kind of feels shitty. And when they say this feels bad, everyone's reaction is, yeah. Things like overdraft fees. That's a good thing they can do. But there are more things. Credit scores should be just illegal. They, as a concept, they're evil. Made by evil people. Evil stuff. That's a great example of something. Make mortgages easier to get. That's a way of fixing things. But to the wider economy, yes, I'm scared of a reckoning. And I'm especially scared of one in tech because when the markets realize that AI is not the next best thing, or the next biggest thing even, they're then going to say, so what is?
Yeah.
What do you got for me? Mark Zuckerberg is going to freak out. I don't know. I actually don't know what happens.
Yeah.
I just had Tom Doughton from the Wall Street Journal on the podcast, and I asked him, what happens if all of this compute space or the GPUs get bought for AI and the demand's not there?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know either. And that's actually the scariest thing.
Amazon, sounds a little bit like the housing bubble or something like that. We bought a lot of something that we thought was going to be worth a lot of money, and it is not anymore.
And that's exactly what it was that. And it reminded me of the hiring in 2021 when all of the tech companies hired tens of thousands of people they didn't need just to hoard them.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is there's a way of repurposing that stuff, but there isn't much. Like you can't just throw GPUs into something. You can, but like, what's it going to be? And there's no other next big thing sitting around. If you think about it, there have been many directions we could have gone in the past.
Yeah.
You had Airbnb, you had Stripe, you had Uber, you had all of these different things that you could do. There's really none of that right now. There's some exciting companies, but there's not like a next big thing in process. And if there isn't, there's going to be a terrible downturn against tech. Look at the startup market now. Worst funding environment I've probably seen in my career. 15 years. And that is more of a bellwether than anything else. Like, if it's a frothy investment market and the public markets are a bit scared, okay, that just means the public companies aren't innovating. It's weird that it's like this. The startup market should tell everyone what it is because venture capitalists aren't spending their money because they have no easy wins. They know something's up. But all of the public companies and some of the private ones have got themselves tied up in a tizzy following a market I think they all kind of realize is bullshit. And when that falls apart, I don't think one of the big tech companies will die, but I think you're going to see a massive collapse in one of them. I think Meta is probably the biggest one, especially because you can't kick Zuck out.
I mean, it's quite a prediction. If that happens, like, I mean, a huge amount of the stock market as a whole, like in the US, is the tech industry. And that's like people's pension funds, it's their retirement accounts. It's like that's a broader economic reckoning. Again, I mean, not making predictions here, but 2008, that was housing. It rippled everywhere else. There's like potentially a similar ripple here.
There is, and I don't know if it will be quite as ruinous because it will bring the stock market down, but the stock market will find a way to survive.
Sure.
I'm more worried about tech in general. I'm more worried about society's view of tech. The thing that the tech industry, and I try and tell as many people as I can, tech people, especially the ones in power, are so goddamn smug. They're so sure everyone in society loves tech. I don't think that's the case. I think things like Google's AI search are turning people against tech.
Yeah.
And tech may say, who gives a shit about these people? I know they make us money, but they're little bastards. I don't care. They use my things. I make money off of them. Except when regulation comes for tech, they're going to really be in trouble.
Yeah.
On top of that, private investment in tech is going to go down even further.
Yeah.
People already don't trust these companies. If they start collapsing, I mean, they don't seem worried, but they also don't seem beguiled by large language models. They generally, everyone right now, the earliest stage people, they're talking about sustainability. They're talking about building things that will last and not growing too fast, smaller teams. That gives me a shit ton of hope.
That's great.
When I talk to these people, and it's usually like, and this is, I don't know, aging myself at 38 here, but it's a lot of these Gen Z founders, they don't give a shit about big tech. They appreciate that they exist, but their reaction to this thing is kind of like mine, which is, why are you acting like this? This is a bad company. This is a bad business. These LLMs are cool,
but
they're not doing the things you say. What if we built a business that people like, that they paid for? And it's very pragmatic and it's cool. I actually, that gives me a lot of hope. It's why I'm not full scale doomer about this. And honestly, I think big tech could use a punch in the face figuratively. I think they need to be taken down a few pegs. I think they need to realize that they've forgotten their customers and forgotten their purpose in life.
I can't thank you enough for coming on here to talk to us about it. We'll have to have you back in a year or two to see whether or not your prediction, because these are very strong predictions.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to see how accurate they are, because you are validating my own emotional truth, and you are making it very definitive.
Well, if I'm wrong, I'll be happy to explain why.
That sounds great. I love that attitude as well. Ed, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, where can people find your work?
So you can find me at where'syourEd.app, and that's my newsletter, and betteroffline.
But this is him reacting to one of the latest gameplay trailers for Earth 2 with just a perfect moment encapsulating the atmosphere of what it's really like to support this project. Here it is.
You go fishing and stuff? I'm definitely gonna fish. Nothing can beat this. I can't find anything that's close to this.
So nothing can beat this. Can't find anything that's close to this after a character swung a fishing rod with no line on it at the edge of some water. That is what it's like supporting Earth 2, okay? Just to get the ball rolling here. It's like fishing by just swinging a stick in the air at some water and then telling everyone, there's nothing that beats this, really. I can't even find anything close to this. What a thrilling adventure. Joking aside, only for right now though, because trust me, there's plenty more jokes down the line. Earth 2 actually did go viral in 2022, I think? January of 2022, more precisely according to the Wayback Machine. Tier 1 digital real estate, in the UK at least, was going for about $15 per plot. For reference, an individual plot is 10 meters by 10 meters of digital real estate that you buy on this alternate version of Earth, and supposedly later in the future it's going to be a whole alternate reality where you will build and fight each other and sell things, and blah blah whatever. Sounds good, right? Well, no, it's not. Because here and now, if you go to the more recent Earth 2 website, you'll see that Tier 1 land, once again in the UK, is being traded for 45 cents. That represents a pretty staggering decline, but it gets so much better when you go back and look at more of what's been said about this project by someone who I honestly have a pretty soft spot in my heart for now, oddly enough, because he's just so endearingly stupid. I can't even actually be angry at him, I don't think. My man, Aria Realty, self-professed near millionaire because of Earth 2, when the number he's showing on screen only says $686,000, which is money he can't even liquidate the property for because there's no buyers, decided over 2 years ago, right, to release a video titled, "This Token Will 10x on Launch Day." And he was referring to Essence, which is the token of Earth 2. It will 10x on Launch Day. That's fantastic. Sign me up. But what else did he say? Here's a pretty good rundown.
I mean, look at the water detail right there. What game has detail like that? This is insane. And this is gonna have a cryptocurrency? I swear, man. If you hold Essence, you're a genius. I'm telling you, I've been backing this company for like 3 years because I know it's gonna happen. It only took this long because of the crypto bear market. If you don't know markets.
I love this guy. I actually love this guy. If you hold Essence, you're a genius. I just know I know what's gonna happen. And then... The average price of land plots is down like 97%. The token did obviously not 10x on launch day after he claimed it would launch in maybe July, but certainly September of 2022, except it didn't come out until 2024. and it's actually down over 40% in the first month alone while trading volume evaporates. There's so much history here, I don't honestly think I could cover it all without a 2-hour documentary, which would 100% make an excellent video, and I should probably work on it. But the point is to demonstrate just how absurd the project really is and what kind of people are actively supporting it. The subreddit is a ghost town. What little posts are there come directly from the developers announcing random stats and promotional figures or opportunities to buy more land, and then regular people trying desperately to sell the property they already have with no buyers. Here's one from 9 days ago, or 10 days ago rather, where the poor guy is selling everything at a big discount, and yet there's no traction. He still has them. Here's one from 22 days ago, or 23 days ago, sorry, because the script and I wrote it and most of it yesterday. Anyway, saying, quote, "How to go about selling my property. No one wants to buy it. I have had it listed for many years." And the list goes on of people who either can't sell or can't withdraw because the project, being as charitable as I possibly can here, has some issues. That being said, it's also an excellent source of entertainment. Aha.
Imagine owning land in the Essence before this next fortnight happens. Come on, common sense.
Imagine owning land in Essence before the next fortnight happens. Like, this is the next fortnight to these people. Come on, common sense, right? Common sense. And yet every single video on his channel indicates, quote, "Everything in this video and on this channel is for entertainment purposes only," which is a disclaimer he only has because I called him out for it a couple years ago and showed him that if he kept doing what he was doing, he would be violating the Investment Advisors Act of 1940 because he got commissions when people invested fresh money into the project. Hi, buddy. Just checking up on you here. Earth 2 is not a responsible thing to be promoting, and you probably shouldn't be telling people it's in a factual way that the token will, with certainty, 10x on launch day, or telling people that they're geniuses for holding it, or that you just know what's going to happen, because you're making people lose their savings. Like, you're doing that to them. But maybe it's okay, because you drive a Tesla, and you made damn sure to put it right in your profile picture. You might actually be one of the greatest entertainers in history, my dude, and somehow, some way, I can't even. In a weird, twisted way, dude, I appreciate you. I mean, get this. Another one of this games, if you can call it that, because they do have a product where you can walk around with an avatar in a digital world, so I guess credit for that portion. But another one of this project's dedicated advocates released a video where the thumbnail is Jordan Belfort, the financial criminal, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, in this case during the movie Wolf of Wall Street, where it flat out says, "The only regret you're going to have is that you didn't buy more." These guys have completely lost the plot here. He was the bad guy. The dude was a con man who swindled people out of their money by committing fraud and lying about penny stocks. It's like they tried some sort of attempt at irony, but they accidentally got it right by accurately showcasing themselves as the swindlers, telling people that they're geniuses for holding penny value crypto tokens that immediately crash in price. It's honestly incredible. I never thought I would watch a video of a guy who has hundreds of thousands of dollars in digital real estate looking at a gaming avatar fishing, like with big air quotes around that word fishing, by just waving a stick with no string in the air and saying there's nothing better than this. I would have never predicted any of it 5 years ago because the level of delusion required for it's astronomical. But here we are. It's real, it's happening, and I continue to laugh at the absurdity of Earth 2 even after years have passed by because it's a gift that just keeps on giving. To be completely fair, you can now walk around with an avatar in some sort of rudimentary game world. You can trade little jewels. There's a really basic system for skins that they release, I guess, which leads into this.
No, those skins. You see those skins? I swear, they're gonna go for thousands, tens of thousands. You get those things for like $20. It's gonna go for like 10,000.
And I'll admit, there's like stuff going on in a way. I think the project deserves maybe partial credit for that. It's not good content, but there's at least some sort of content. And yes, they continue to round out maximized revenue extraction methods from a very, very gullible subset of the population. But at the very least, it's a source of ongoing entertainment for the rest of us as we witness greater fool theory in action actively every single step of the way. That's it. If you want to support the channel, there's plenty of links down below. The video sponsor, of course, Car Keys Express, if you do or ever will need cheaper replacements. Locals and Patreon, monthly memberships, and more, like special Earth-type merchandise down below that we made as a joke about Earth 2 a while back and actually came out super good. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.
Staring into this and just finding cool thing after cool thing, and you get into 19 and you're saying hit me.
And this
is the hard part for me.
That's the fun part.
Okay.
This is the part
Watching
I've
you
been
squirm.
waiting for. This is the part I've been waiting for. Now let's put this.
This is an
in.
elaborate hoax.
Yes.
My whole life's
And I
an elaborate
should-
hoax.
Now I should be putting the patents up so that everybody isn't out there saying, you know, this isn't his shit. But so when you get to this level
Yeah.
of decay, they start to come together and they create this natural
How gorgeous
curvature.
is that? Look at that.
But do me a favor, they also create these spaces, and if you lay them out, one on top of,
Well, I'm still riffing on this one.
well, you're about to see that interact with the other side. Like we came to play today.
Boy, nothing like these conversations make me understand how different people's brains work.
Here
There's
we
just
go.
different humans out there.
Here we go. So, all right, let's, if I can move some of your stuff.
By the way, I just didn't know what I was getting.
Yeah.
I brought like
No.
some weird tools in
So
case you were
lay-
going to make weird
like,
points.
So if you're laying these
Yeah.
out, you're starting to see this pattern. But what's interesting, these have chirality. These
Yep.
spin in opposite directions from each other, but they ultimately reform together to fully tell that story.
So this is why category theory is so powerful, because your analogizing brain, I mean, let's be honest. I want everybody to form without saying anything to each other. What is this most similar to?
The DNA.
Right, I was going to say the same. Right? And if it was DNA,
conversation now.
What you're,
I had
even
it
if what you're
60-40,
saying is true,
60%
let's
Biden will
imagine
remain
that we
the nominee,
find
40% he won't.
some
Now I
structures
think
like
it's
the
time to
ones you're
officially
talking
make that
about in
50-50.
wave fronts.
So look
right?
at this. This is in the New York
I
Times.
think
This
what you're
just came
doing is
out.
totally
Biden told
canonical,
Ally that he is
and it's
posted
very,
this
very
4 hours
natural.
ago.
And I think you're building models, and you don't know how to do
And
the
in
algebra.
the meantime,
probably.
Biden has
and you
come out
probably
very
don't know how to
strongly
do
and
the
said,
differential
I'm
equations,
staying
all
in the
that.
race.
Fine, I can
weighing
point
whether
you
to
to books that
continue in
can
the
try
race.
to help
The
you.
president's conversation is the first indication that he's seriously
I'm a
considering
geometer.
whether he can recover
I
after a
like
devastating
doing
performance on the debate
geometry.
stage
I
in
would
Atlanta
love
on
to-
Thursday. So he had been digging
The Biden camp denied this, you know,
in for
it
a
is what it
while.
is.
But the dam kind of broke recently, not only after the debate, but after a
Elias with 120 months. My goodness. Thank you so much, buddy.
story came out that apparently one of the driving forces to try to keep him in the race is Hunter.
Kyle Kalinske in 2020
Students, parents, or
covered the
teachers.
election
Ideally,
on election
our
night
education should cultivate
as a guest on Joe
well-rounded
Rogan's
individuals
podcast.
News-
And when
suited
Rogan
passions,
asked him
personalities,
who he
strengths,
voted for, he said, neither. I'm not going to vote for a war criminal. In 2020, you guys, in 2020, just put yourself back into the mindset of November of 2020. So for an affluent fucking content creator, fucking podcaster, what a luxury to just be like, oh, I can't vote for a war criminal. Jesus, man. God damn it. Like, he's another one of these dumb shits that didn't learn the lesson from 2016.
Biden. For those of you who don't remember, Biden fired people in his administration if they just reported that in the past they had used marijuana. But here we have Hunter, a literal crackhead, and he's helping steer the ship, and he's one of Biden's closest advisors now.
The progressive position of, notice how their principles just fly right out the window. He's talking about a recovering drug addict who's been sober for years now. And he just dismisses him as a crackhead. That's super progressive.
What are we talking about? So a dam really has broken. Let me give you some more, because this stuff is really interesting. So some big name Democrats.
And of course, you know what? This is like on a petty level. This is the thing that's like that part of the pain of this moment, which is this is a painful moment that we're in. Just sucks. But part of the pain of this moment is people like Kyle Kalinske doing these fucking. He's just consistently wrong on so many issues, and he's just doing these. He's just positively giddy, you know. He's just smacking his pud like 4 times a day because he's just so aroused at the spectacle of all this, you know? Just pisses me off.
Democratic Senator Peter Welch chastises Biden campaign on how it's handling the age issue and their use of bedwetting.
Hold on. Let me see. If I join this. Allow when I revisit. Okay, so I need to disable the camera in here, which I will do. And then I need to enable it in here. Okay, there it is. Mirror camera, that's better.
Hey, Josiah, how's my volume? I sound good.
But the audience will tell us.
Hey, hi.
They will be the judges.
Hey, it's your face.
It is, Hutch. I guess it is our first show where I've shown my face. So
He's revealed himself.
that's true.
What's up, boys?
Nothing much.
Man, it's brutal to be in Democratic politics for the past
Oh my
5
God.
days, 6 days in particular.
It's fucking brutal.
Dude, how are you?
It's fucking brutal. I agree. I concur. This is just a nightmare.
It really is. It really is. And for some reason, his connection is 8 out of 10, and he is a bit laggy. There we go. Now it's better. Now Hutch is...
Association held a call Monday to discuss the ongoing response to last week's debate and a widespread concern among the state chief executives that Mr. Biden has done little outreach to governors. The governors decided on Monday they wanted to hear directly from the president, which makes it sound like the governors initiated the meeting. Okay, so hey, quick thanks to our new member Georgia Peach, also our member Anak123. Thank you so much, Leonette, for your. He says the New York Times Siena post-debate poll shows Trump widening his lead among likely voters nationally, gaining 3 percentage points. Trump 49%, Biden 43%. It is Trump's largest ever lead in a Times poll. So that's not good news for Biden. And then there was this one that came out today, the Wall Street Journal poll. As Sahil Kapoor mentioned, new Wall Street Journal poll post-debate, Trump 48%, Biden 42%. Same Wall Street Journal poll in February, Trump 47%, Biden 45%. So the more polls that come out that show Biden not doing well, I think it's natural to think there'll be more pressure on Biden to step aside. No, that is false. Another falsehood in our chat. Another falsehood in our chat. Somebody says, these are old, what was it? These are old polls? They're older dates? These polls are older dates? Boy, that's news to me because Wall Street Journal literally says conducted June 29th to July 2nd. That's interesting. But you're telling me in the chat it's older dates. So I guess you have a better source about the Wall Street Journal poll than the Wall Street Journal. False chat fake news alert, folks. Then the same viewer said that the New York Times was older dates. Boy, that's news to me because the New York Times article itself says the poll was conducted from June 28th to July 2nd. So I guess our viewer has better, I guess our viewer knows about the dates of the polls more than the people who conducted the polls do. Wow, that's a really in the know viewer. Anyways, so. Hey, quick thanks to Bill Ward for your support. Bill Ward thinks the whole reason his advisors allowed him to debate was to have reason to force him to step down. It's their only way to even have a chance to beat Trump in their eyes. I understand the thinking there, Bill. I understand the thinking. I don't know. It feels a little too 4D chess to me to say that his advisors who work for him and in theory who are judged on how they do in their jobs based on how he does, decided to talk him into debating thinking he would do terribly. I don't know. It's a lot for me to swallow. I understand your thinking. It's a lot for me to swallow. I'm just saying personally. You're not the only one who said that. And I get where it's coming from. It's just a lot for me to swallow. Now, is there a world in which he said, I want to debate, and they said, do it soon? And they figured, well, maybe if we do it soon, then if something goes wrong, it'll be better than doing it later? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It's just, I understand the thinking. It's just a lot to swallow. But that's just my personal opinion. I might be wrong about that. I understand your thought, though, Bill. Thanks so much, Bill Ward. I appreciate it. It's an interesting question. Whether they at all pushed him to do this earlier. I mean, the conventional thinking is that he wanted to do it earlier just because his poll numbers weren't working great, and he wanted to turn things around. So thanks, Bill Ward. Thanks also to Samuel DeMarco. He says if Biden drops out, what happens to the campaign donations? There's questions about what happens to them and would they have to go to him or Harris or could they go to somebody else? Maybe we'll talk about that later in the stream. I'm not well versed on that, and I've heard like people way more knowledgeable than me debate this question, so I don't have an easy answer for you. But maybe we'll talk about it later in the stream. Thanks, Samuel. And thanks to PZ Papa Zulu for the gift memberships. I really appreciate that, PZ Papa Zulu. Thank you. Hey, let's talk about some of the other updates coming out today. Then we'll talk about some other stuff, but in this whole topic. But I want to catch you up on what happened today. So we talked about how right now most of the Democratic governors in the country are meeting with President Biden over concerns they have had about the fallout from his bad debate performance last week. So what exactly they're saying, I don't know. That's a live shot from the White House via AFP where they're meeting. Maybe we'll get a statement after from one or more of the governors. So there's that. As I mentioned, there were some bad polls that came out for Biden today. These are not all the polls that came out today, but the New York Times poll and the Wall Street Journal poll, both post-debate polls, had him 6 points behind Trump, which is not good for him. So there's that. So today the second member of Congress said he shouldn't run, and another member of Congress said he has grave concerns about Biden running. So let's talk about that. So the New York Times reported today that Representative Raul Grijalva of Arizona became the second House Democrat to call on Biden to leave the race. He said, if he's the candidate, I'm going to support him, but I think that this is an opportunity to look elsewhere. What he needs to do is shoulder the responsibility for keeping that seat, and part of that responsibility is to get out of the race. So that's the second House Democrat to say he should get out. And then a little while ago, another representative said that he has grave concerns about Biden's ability to beat Trump. Let me show you this. Congressman Seth Moulton, right here. Congressman Seth Moulton. Let's look at what he has to say. He is a Massachusetts Democratic congressman. Seth Moulton said, let me blow this up a little bit here. I deeply respect President Biden and all the great things he has done for America, but I have grave concerns about his ability to defeat Donald Trump. Beating Trump is imperative for the future of our democracy, especially now that the Supreme Court just handed him a blank check to act like a king. Winning will require prosecuting the case in the media, in town halls, and at campaign stops all over the country. President Biden needs to demonstrate he can do that. Look at this. The unfortunate reality is that the status quo will likely deliver us President Trump. When your current strategy isn't working, it's rarely the right decision to double down. President Biden is not going to get younger. Congressman Moulton, a Democrat, says, since Thursday night, I have been having nonstop, tough, honest conversations with colleagues and other Democrats. I'm taking time to seriously consider the best strategy for Democrats to win this election and set our country on a positive path forward. I've already said that America needs to elevate a new generation of leaders, and I respect those colleagues who've already spoken out. We should all have viable options on the table. I mean, to me, this is basically him saying Biden should get out without saying the words Biden should get out. I mean, if you just read it, he really seems to be suggesting that he thinks Biden should get out. So, you know, he's not officially a congressman asking Biden to step aside, but basically he seems kind of like the third one who's asked him to not run. So there's this question out there. I have heard some reporting suggesting that there's a lot of congressmen who actually think this, but have not come out and said it yet. And I don't know if that's true. for example, I saw this today. Bloomberg reported today. That dozens of Democratic lawmakers are considering signing a letter demanding that President Biden withdraw from the race. A senior party official said as panic mounts that he will cost them control of Congress. And Bloomberg also reports that Biden is rapidly losing the support of Democratic lawmakers and candidates, concerned that his continued candidacy would lead to a Republican sweep of Washington and an unchecked Donald Trump presidency. So that's coming from Bloomberg today. Give me 1 second here. One moment. So we're going to take some comments on the air from you guys. Hold on. 1 moment, please. What is going on here? Oh, I know what happened. Sorry. Let's try this one more time. Just give me 1 more second here. All right, you can give me a shout. Let me know what you think at Lookner on X. Oh, where is it? Everything's falling apart here. Everything. Hey, I'm gonna let you look at for 1 second. I'm gonna let you look at the. Here's the shot of the White House. Just give me 7 seconds here. Give me 7 seconds. I was muted. Sorry. I was muted. So this live shot here is from right outside the White House, where Biden is meeting with most of the country's Democratic governors. That is going on right now, that meeting. We may get a statement from one or more governors after this meeting. So we are keeping an eye on that too. Will Biden do another debate with Trump? I'm sure he'd be overjoyed to if he's still in the race. I don't know that Trump will want to do it. I don't know why Trump would want to give Biden a chance to do better in a debate. If you were Trump, would you want to give Biden a chance to do better in a debate than he did? John 1948 says someone moved in the window. This is the stakeout going on outside the meeting. Super Supegdak King thinks Trump should never do another debate. American Builder says Trump doesn't care, he would debate again. Oh, I have an update here. Well, that doesn't make sense. I thought there were only 23 Democratic governors. One reporter said they're meeting with 24 Democratic governors and the D.C. mayor. But I thought there were only 23 Democratic governors. Let me look this up. Yes, there are 23 Democratic governors and 3 territorial governors who are Democrats, according to Wikipedia. There was another thing I want. Oh, I wanted to. Something else happened. Something else happened late today, which I want to mention to you guys. Something else happened late today. The New York Times came out with a story today that said Netflix co-founder becomes one of the biggest Democratic donors to call for Biden to step aside. Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix, who in recent years has become one of the biggest donors to the Democratic Party, today called on President Biden to relinquish his place atop of the Democratic presidential ticket. He became the first to say publicly what many Democratic megadonors are saying privately, says the New York Times. In an email to the New York Times, Reed Hastings said, Biden needs to step aside to allow a vigorous Democratic leader to beat Trump and keep us safe and prosperous. So that's another thing that happened today. So, as I mentioned, we have some bad polls today for Biden. We had a second congressman, Democratic, said he shouldn't run. We had another congressman all but say he shouldn't run, another Democratic congressman. We have one of the biggest Democratic donors coming out publicly and saying he shouldn't run. And again, I have heard a bunch of reporting. I can't say whether it's true, but there's a lot of reporting floating around. I mean, I just read you one such report that says among Democratic politicians and Democratic donors and prominent Democrats, there are a bunch more of them who agree that Biden shouldn't run. They just haven't come out and said it yet. And so I just showed you here that the New York Times is claiming that many Democratic megadonors are saying this privately, that he shouldn't run. But he's the first one, Reed Hastings, to say it publicly. And I also gave you that report from Bloomberg saying that dozens of, what was the exact wording in the Bloomberg one? Dozens of congressmen are considering signing a letter telling Biden to not run. Where was it here? Bloomberg said dozens of Democratic lawmakers are considering signing a letter demanding Biden withdraw from the race. So how many other prominent Democrats are out there that are thinking to themselves, I don't want him to run, but either they're not sure about saying it or they're going to say it, but they're not saying it yet. They're waiting for other people to say it. Could there be this kind of sudden dam burst of a lot more people saying this? Beats me. Red Squirrel says, it's not an easy decision. It's a gamble keeping him and a gamble not keeping him. The Perryman says, anyone who's seen the debate knows Biden is done. Linda Meck says he is going down in the polls. Paper City Gamer says, I don't know why we can't hear from his doctors. All other presidents, the doctors make press conferences. I believe with presidents, doctors would have a press conference like if the president had an injury or something like that. I don't know that they'd regularly do a press conference. Now, I understand, this idea of wanting to get health information about him. I believe both Trump and Biden have not given out that much health information. I've heard journalists saying they would like more from both, but I'm not up to date on what they've given out. I don't remember the reports I read. You can go to the White House and get the current health summary of the president. That is from February. So there is a summary here from February that you can read if you'd like. Here, I'll post it in the chat. You know what I'm going to do at some point during the stream? I'm going to play you some of the White House press briefing from today. So here's an example. There's a magazine about science news called Stat, and Stat has it's a well-known magazine it's like a science news magazine. Health and Medicine. It's a health and medicine magazine, health and medicine news site, Stat. They have an opinion story today that says President Biden needs a full medical evaluation. Voters deserve to know the results. And the author is Lawrence Altman, a clinical professor of medicine at New York University and a columnist for the New York Times and a former reporter. So he has an article that came out in Stat today that says the public needs to be reassured that despite being physically feeble, there isn't something medically wrong with Biden to explain the mental lapses, rambling, mid-sentence stumbles, apparent loss of concentration, open mouth gaping, and flat tactical facial expression that viewers saw during the debate. And this is somebody who's like a medical expert saying this. So my point is just that there are people out there who think there should be more medical information coming out from Biden in the aftermath of this debate. You can agree with it or not agree with it, but that's just an example. Thanks so much, Mandy, for your support. Mandy says, sometimes I feel like saying, I don't care which one of you trashed the room, someone clean it up. America just needs healing. Thanks also to Neil Johnson. Neil is not a Gavin Newsom fan. He thinks we need someone else besides Newsom. Alaska, thanks for your support. Alaska thinks that Gavin Newsom will swoop in. Thank you, Camus, who says Biden is dropping out. He just doesn't know it yet. Thank you, Camus, for your support. Thank you, Walter Beasley, for your support. Now, Walter says I can't vote for him because of how he handled Palestine. But it sounds like, Walter, your vote on this election is not really, sounds like it wasn't swayed by the debate either way. Thank you, Walter, for your support. Also, Loaded Wrench, who thinks Trump should demand a debate every day of Biden. Again, I don't think Trump's going to debate Biden again, but that's my opinion. Thank you also, Man, Bear, Pig, for your support. Who thinks Hillary is going to take the Gerald Ford route to the Oval Office? Wait, so this is interesting. You're saying that she would be a vice president? Because Ford was vice president before he became president. I don't think Hillary's going to be the vice president. I don't think the Democrats would want to have her as vice president because there would be too many negatives. I think there would be. I think if Biden dropped out, they would want to go with maybe they would have Harris on the ticket, but they might want to go with like a fresh ticket. I don't think they would want the negatives of Hillary, put it that way. Whatever you think of Hillary. I'm checking for updates here. This is the story where stuff could really happen at any time in this story. Really, stuff could come out whenever. And we have this ongoing meeting. It's going on right now at the White House between Biden and most of the nation's governors. There's a new story from the Daily Beast I just saw. So Roger Solenberger from the Daily Beast says, in new candid video, I guess they have a clip of the video. In new candid video, Trump states as fact that Biden is quitting the race after debate. I got him out, he says, and calls him an old broken down pile of crap. Trump says he'd prefer to run against Kamala Harris, calls her pathetic. They actually have the video posted. I